We just celebrated the unofficial start of the summer, which means that there are going to be all kinds of fabulous movies coming out. But what will the representation of black people be like in these movies? Joining us on the live line right now, we have got Joseph Flynn. He is the Associate Director of the Center for Black Studies, and he's also the Associate Professor of Curriculum and Instruction at NIU. Hello, how are you doing, Professor Flynn?
I'm fine. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I love this topic. We've got all these movies that are coming out that black people are just so proud of. For example, we're just coming off of Black Panther. And then I know that character had a prominent role in the next Marvel Comics film, etc. Are the days of The Help over? That's one of the last movies. That movie made me so angry that I swore I would not go and see it. But then a friend of mine who wrote for a local magazine said, Kim, we'll pay you to go see it if you'll write something about it. So I went ahead and did. And I was scarred by The Help.
It did get us an Oscar. So
yeah, it got us an Oscar, but it got us an Oscar for something that Hattie McDaniel got an Oscar for back in 1938. So.
Amen to that. I think the roles are definitely beginning to change, and we're definitely seeing a broadening of how black folks are being represented, fictitiously as well as realistically. Yeah. And there are a number of films that are coming out and have come out that, for lack of better terms, we're either starring or stealing the show.
Great.
The first one came out a few weeks ago with the wonderful Gabriella Union breaking in, where she's protecting her family after some men break into the house. The plot of the film is in the title. But Gabriella's role in Hollywood is just getting stronger and stronger. I think she's one of the best African-American actresses out there today. And a lot of people might not be aware of this, but her character from being Mary Jane Paul, is actually ending. Mm-hmm. And this is really important because it's not about film, it's about television, but Olivia Pope from Scandal, played by Kerry Washington, she also ended this year.
That's right.
So now there are no TV shows that feature a black woman as the lead character. So these representations in media can, have their peaks and valleys, definitely. But I think Gabriella is one of those kinds of actresses that brings a lot of gravity to her characters, and she's a wonderful performer. But I think the big news right now, of course, is Solo, a Star Wars story with Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. Donald Glover, you can't say enough about Donald Glover right now. If you do not know who Donald Glover is, you need to get online and find out about his work. He's amazing. His TV show, Atlanta, is probably easily one of the best TV shows out right now. If you've never watched it, you should. And, of course, Donald also goes by the name Childish Gambino, and he just recently released his latest song, This Is America, and the song is amazing, the video is amazing, and his recent stint on Saturday Night Live was absolutely hilarious. So
he's a talent. He's a triple threat.
Yeah, he's just amazing. And next summer, in terms of film, his biggest turn will be in the live action Lion King, starring alongside Beyonce.
Okay.
So there's a lot to look at coming from Donald Glover. So there are definite opportunities and possibilities of robust representations of black folks in film this summer and coming up in the future.
What is this movie, Sorry to Bother You?
Oh, well, it's funny that you ask about Sorry to Bother You, because Sorry to Bother You stars Lakeith Stanfield, who is also one of the actors on Atlanta. And Lakeith Stanfield is one of those actors that as soon as you see him on the screen, he's the only thing you can look at, even when he's on the screen with Donald Glover. And the film is about a black guy who is a telemarketer, and he comes up with the idea that if he makes himself sound white, then he will get more sales. Okay. And his white voice is performed by white actor and comedian David Cross. Mm-hmm. You might know David Cross from the show Arrested Development. Okay. And I'm most interested in Sorry to Bother You of all the films coming out this summer, because I think this is the one that will be this summer's Get Out. Okay. In the sense that it's going to really push some conversations, because I wish I had $1 for every time someone told me that I sounded white, even though I'm not. Mm-hmm. And so these are really, really important conversations about how we think about race, how race sounds, how race looks, what people are supposed to appear as racially, and this notion that white privilege doesn't exist is ridiculous.
Well, let me ask a question about that. Let me ask a question about that. The idea that, we were talking about some other movies and they sounded like, complete fiction type thing. But we're talking about how this movie will bring up the topic of race and we'll have conversations. Is that something that is just almost necessary whenever we're talking about movies that feature black people, that we have to have the discussion about how race impacts, our lives in the movie?
Well, I would extend it to say that talking about how race is represented in any film is important. Okay. Film, television, literature, the arts in general are one of the most powerful ways to talk about these issues, because it gives people an actual common example to work from. We all saw the movie, so how do we think about it, right? Mm-hmm. And, I think when you look at, say, for instance, the sequel or reboot of Ocean's 11 called Ocean's 8 starring Sandra Bullock, it's another one of those films that seemed like it was written for a white cast, while putting in a couple of non-white actors to make sure that the diversity card is punched, you know what I mean? And I believe Rihanna is, quote unquote, the black girl in the film. Okay. So how do we think about, and how do films portray African Americans as well as Latinos and Asian Americans, Native Americans in various roles, and how do those roles represent us as individuals and people, and then that spreads into a conversation about what kinds of opportunities there are. And I think things are beginning to open up, and definitely with the success of films like Black Panther and Get Out, even 12 Years a Slave, etc. These doors are definitely beginning to open, but just because they're beginning to open doesn't necessarily mean they're as wide open as they ought to be. You know what I mean?
I completely do, and I'm really enjoying this conversation. We are talking with Joseph Flynn. He is the Associate Director of the Center for Black Studies at NIU. Will you hold on with me for this quick break for traffic and weather? Because I really want to get into this whole idea of bringing back Superfly. I've seen the promos for it. Let's talk about that a little bit more when we come back right after this break. You are listening to WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago. We are in the final 15 minutes, and we're really lucky to have this guest. It is Joseph Flynn. He is the Associate Director of the Center for Black Studies at NIU. And before we went to break, I had the occasion to see the preview for the remake of Superfly, and I want to know what you think about this movie. It's not new, but it is new.
I'm excited about it. Okay.
I
think first the young man portraying Superfly this time around, Trevor Jackson. If you're not familiar with him, he is. You can see him on the show Grownish, and he's making a really great come up in his career as well. And the film is directed by a gentleman named Director X, who has made a number of wonderful music videos. But the story is Superfly in and of itself, and taking, the story, from the 70s and the blaxploitation era about a pimp who basically beats everybody at their own game. At the time was an empowering role in the sense that it was a black man as the hero all the way through, and to reboot that today and use today's language, today's sensibility. In the trailer, there's a line that he says that he traded in his money for cryptocurrency, so they're taking all of the accoutrements of today and putting it into this film. And it seems to me like, without having seen the film, of course, since it's not out yet, but it seems like they're going to make Superfly more of a superhero to a certain degree, you know what I mean? And, try to have a lot of fun with it while also, depicting black men as being strong, masters of their own destiny, et cetera, et cetera.
So
and I think that those stories can be important.
That's the question I have, though. The idea that, it's depicting him as a superhero, but number one, is he still a pimp? And number two, in the preview, and I know you haven't had an opportunity to screen the movie, but all I saw, women were just reduced to dancing and shaking body parts, half-naked body parts. So what, we're going from something where we're talking about characters like Gabrielle Union and Kerry Washington and Scandal, who and also isn't How to Get Away with Murder, that one is still on, right? I mean, I don't think.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we're talking about these roles that black women are finally getting to see themselves as, with some form of self-determination and some form of grace and character. But can we expect anything like that from this movie, as this black man is celebrated, but are the women just going to be reduced to what, hookers? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, I think the film shifts from prostitution to drug dealing. Not like that's a great move, right? But I do believe that he will have a female love interest, and it'll be interesting to see how she is constructed in the film. Is she an independent woman, or is she more docile and subservient? Mm-hmm. But this also, of course, gets to the larger question about racism and black representation. And the question always comes down to, is it okay, or when will it be okay, for black folks specifically to play unsavory characters and not be criticized for that? You know what I'm saying? The idea of having robust representations means that we should be able to play the pimp and the prostitute as well as the president, you know what I'm saying? And have the performances in and of themselves judged, and not necessarily say, oh, well, it's just another black movie because it's got, drugs and violence in it,
Sure.
Because black folks aren't the only people that make films with drugs and violence.
But there's
white
always
folks do them too.
This additional spin, though, and I'm going to flip what you just said on its head, because I think that we do need to have so many more roles so that we can absorb some of the less savory imagery. But I'm thinking about Pretty Woman, and Julia Roberts played a hooker, but she was like the hooker with the heart of gold, and she was like the princess version of the hooker. Well, black women never get that part. When we're the hooker, we're the hooker. You know what I'm saying? like it's you're the lowest of the low, loud mouth, trashy, etc. So I guess I don't want to see any more parts like that. I didn't even enjoy. I didn't even finish Straight Out of Compton, because I was like, hey, this is this mess all over again. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're celebrating the rise of black men getting out of the poor inner city, but the women are still being demeaned. So I'm just trying to figure out. I know we have to have all the different dynamics, but can we get a nice, you know what I mean? Can we get black, like Black Panther, you know, that was awesome. Black men and black women working together and that type of thing. I just don't want to see us sacrificed.
Yeah, I believe that there is a film, and I'm not sure if it's a feature film or if it's a documentary that's supposed to come out about Roxanne Shante.
I heard about that.
Which, that's a brilliant story.
Yeah.
And she was able to, if you all don't know who Roxanne Shante is, back in the 80s, the group UTFO came out with a song called Roxanne, Roxanne. These three guys are trying to get the affection of this young lady, Roxanne. She makes a diss track, you know, a response to them. And her record label kind of screwed her over, and after, you know, for a legal settlement, the record label agreed to pay for her college education.
Right.
But she went all the way through college. So she ended up earning her doctorate degree. And they had assumed that, she'll just graduate from high school and maybe do some community college, so this will be a better deal for us, right? But she ended up parlaying that into, you know, a doctorate degree and a really strong career. So I agree with you. I think stories like that need to be told far more often than stories that feature black women as, you know, secondary characters and or prostitutes, you know, or drug.
And that's more of a sexism thing anyway, because a lot of the movies, the male is the hero, et cetera, and we're kind of looking adoringly and, you know, not.
Yeah, it is.
So what else can we expect from this summer?
Well, let's see. What else is there? I was about to say Black Klansman, Spike Lee's new film, but that doesn't actually come out until the fall. Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us and the People versus O.J. Simpson, you know, Emmy winner. He's going to be in a sci-fi flick called Hotel Artemis.
Okay.
And it's funny that I'm getting ready to say this considering what we were just saying.
Okay.
But in this film, he stars as a bank robber who's trying to keep his brother alive.
Okay.
But I don't think, from what I understand of the film, the idea of him being a bank robber is an important plot device, but it's really more about the relationship between him and his brother and not criminality. Daveed Diggs will be starring in a film called Blind Spotting, which is somewhat of a buddy film, but that particular movie is set in Oakland and looks at life in Oakland and the issue of the shooting of black men.
Professor, I love this conversation, but I got to stop. Our show is ending. Hopefully we'll stay in touch and I'll get to talk with you more. Thank you so much for coming on.